And we're back at Woodward Academy's Debate Week. We've just enjoyed a rousing debate between two policy experts on Georgia's tax credit scholarship program, and now it's time to return to a set of student debates. I'm Maggie Berthume, Director of Debate at Woodward Academy, and we're here today to witness student debates between the students in Mr. Brian Keith Jackson's Government and Economics classes. The students have been researching public policy and economics issues over the last several weeks, and today we'll be presenting the results of that research in a public debate format. On my right is Mr. Brian Keith Jackson, who has taught the students all that they know and is now helping us to assist in these debates. And on my far right is Mr. Bill Batterman, Associate Director of Debate at Woodward Academy. We will be giving some background on the debate topics and helping to evaluate the debaters.
All right, the first debate we have on board is the issue regarding waterboarding. We have Mr. Tam Weed, who will be arguing the pro side, and Mr. Jack Fleming will be arguing the con side of the issue of waterboarding. Let's start with Mr. Batterman first. Mr. Batterman, what are you looking for in this particular debate?
Well, waterboarding's sort of been off the public radar for a few years, but it's back on and getting some attention because of the Boston bombing suspect. There's been talk about waterboarding him to elicit more information, and so there's been another public conversation about whether waterboarding is torture, whether enhanced interrogation techniques in general should be allowed, whether they're ethical, whether they're effective. So I'm interested to hear the debaters discuss both the effectiveness of this technique as well as the ethics of utilizing it.
Okay, all right, so without further ado, let's turn directly to the students as they articulate their positions with respect to a very important issue considering the Boston bombing incident, and that's the issue of the policy regarding waterboarding.
The torture of a person is an immoral thing to do to anyone, including terrorists. America was founded on the fact that you were innocent until proven guilty. So using deadly force on a suspect that has not been proven guilty is illegal. Additionally, although waterboarding does not inflict severe physical pain, psychological pain could be present. Also, if the U.S. government were allowed to waterboard people as a form of interrogation, then what boundaries would be set for the actual process of the waterboarding? Would there be an amount of time that water could be poured on the person's face? And there actually can be danger if waterboarding is done improperly. Inhalation of water can cause bad damage to the lungs. So technically there is a possibility of severe pain that could be caused to the person which the torture is being put upon. And so torture is humane, so waterboarding is humane because it is torture. And the point of interrogating is to interrogate and not to punish the person being interrogated. Moreover, how does the government even know if the person is telling the truth when giving them information as a result of being waterboarded? They could just be lying to prevent further torture. Finally, if the government were to throw away human rights and use waterboarding as a form of interrogation, they should at least reconsider because of how it would look for the reputation of the U.S.
Okay. Well, terrorists need to be frightened, or else it is unlikely that they will divulge information that we require. Waterboarding as a method of torture has proven to be effective historically, and it is appropriate to make the detainee feel endangered, or else it is unlikely that any information will be obtained. It is exceedingly rare that waterboarding results in injury. The process helps protect innocent civilian lives. It is reasonably clear that the U.S. government's priority should be to protect American citizens, especially in light of recent terroristic activity. Innocent civilians have been hurt. Citizens of the United States have been hurt. It is critical that the terrorists are found and put to justice for their actions, because if they can be stopped, they should be stopped. Terrorists do not hesitate when it comes to torturing detainees, including American citizens, so there is no room for the United States to be any the weaker. Using waterboarding on suspected terrorists in order to obtain information is exactly the sort of act that prevents incidents like 9/11 and allows for the government to capture large-scale terrorists such as Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden. Those who oppose waterboarding as a method of torture should consider all the families and imagine how they would feel if it were their families who had died under the acts of terrorism. In order to save potentially thousands of lives, waterboarding must continue to be used as a method for interrogation. Fear needs to be struck in the hearts of terrorists and allowed to resonate amongst all them, so they know that the United States is not a country to be trifled with. In some dire situations, extreme tactics must be utilized in order to protect the lives of countless individuals.
I waive my rebuttal.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be pretty aggressive. Or go to Bill first. He'll yell at me.
All right. Well, we heard our last debate regarding the use of waterboarding suspected terror suspects. Mr. Batterman, will you please give us your critique of the performances?
Well, I thought that it was a bad decision on both of their parts to waive the opportunity to rebut the other's arguments. I thought the affirmative did a good job of explaining some of the ethical problems with waterboarding and its effects, not only in terms of whether the information elicited is effective, but also the reputation of the United States. But then the negative made some compelling arguments about the importance of deterring terrorism. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear either side's response to the other's arguments. So I think the choice to not rebut the other's arguments was very poor.
All right, now, Ms. Berthium, do you agree with that assessment that it was a poor choice to waive rebuttal?
It's hard to disagree with that. I'm not sure that you can call something a debate when one side presents their side, the other side responds, I guess, and then there is no further development of the arguments. I think that I would really have liked to see sort of the give and take between some of these ethical issues and the efficacy issues, but that didn't happen in this debate.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to our next debate, and let's handicap that. We have next on the docket, we have embryonic stem cell research involving Mr. Ben Feldman and Mr. Robert Brush. Mr. Batterman, please handicap this. What will you be looking for from debaters with respect to this topic of the use of embryonic stem cells?
Well, this is another interesting one because it has a variety of layers of argument that are available to the students. There's certainly ethical arguments. There's some sort of scientific arguments. There's a disagreement between those who believe in medical research, freedom of religion, or those who believe that it is unethical to utilize certain scientific techniques. So it's an important debate to have because the arguments about embryonic stem cells are also relevant to debates about a wide variety of other issues where science collides with ethics.
All right, and Ms. Berthium, please handicap this debate for us. What will you be looking for?
I'll be looking for both of the debaters to take the opportunity to respond to each other. I think that because of the intricacies of this issue, as Mr. Batterman highlighted, it's really going to be important to, in order to assess how the debaters have prepared and what level of understanding they have, it's going to be important to see how they respond to the arguments of the other side.
All right, well, we'll see how well they do. Without further ado, let's turn our attention and our cameras over to Mr. Ben Feldman and Mr. Robert Brush, with Mr. Feldman going first, arguing for the affirmative, and then Mr. Brush giving his opening statement, and then we'll have an opportunity for rebuttal. Thank you very much for watching.
Stem cell research happens when you contract embryonic stem cells from 5 to 7 day old embryos, and then they're used for many diseases, including diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, heart disease, stroke, birth defects, spinal cord injuries, and could in the future provide a permanent cure to cancer. Also, these are only about 1/10 of what they can cure. There's over 100 ailments that can be treated. An example is psoriasis, one of the biggest killers in the U.S., which is liver failure. Previously, the only treatment was transplantation, and what would happen, it would either be rejected or infection, which would be very painful death. Now they can repair livers with stem cells without hurting the person. The cons argument is that it's a person and it's murdering a child, but it's 5 to 7 years old and it's taken from aborted fetuses, and those fetuses will never be a person because they're just sitting in a lab because they're taken from aborted fetuses, and they're taken at the blastula stage where it's just a cluster of cells and it hasn't even developed into anything looking or like a person.
The use of embryonic stem cells involves the destruction of fetuses, which are formed from the early stages of conception. For those who believe that life begins at conception, this fact is not held to be true. We consider using stem cells to new technology. It is completely unknown what the long-term effects of such an interference with nature could bring about. If you inject stem cells into a person for any reason, and the cells are rejected by the body, a cancer cluster can form and metastasize or break away from the original structure and go and attack vital organs within your body, such as your heart, brain, or liver. The result is a normal functioning body of organs now being violated with a corrupted disease. Additionally, stem cell research promotes the killing of innocent fetuses through abortion. Fetuses could be normal children whose mothers could have opted for a more ethical and human alternative like adoption. Furthermore, several polls that are taken annually show that public opinion to funding stem cell research and to put the public's money towards use moved from 33% to 39% over the past 5 years. Although the results of implanting stem cells into the human body to repair past injuries is promising, there have been many cases of the body rejecting implanted stem cells. In one case, Parkinson's patients were injected with fetal brain cells, and the aftermath of disease were writhing, twisting, head jerking, and arm flailing. In other words, their disease progressed and did not slow or even become cured.
I have a rebuttal. He said that cancer can form in transplantation. The beauty of the embryonic stem cell is that if you need to transplant a piece of an organ or say a whole organ, what you need to do is they take the stem cells and they put in a dish. They take their stem cells and they put whatever chemicals they need for it to form into that piece, so the body won't reject it, as if they were to take it from another person, and if they took it from another person, the body could reject it. This is why this is very rare, and the many cases of this stem cells being rejected, there's been very few and been mostly success.
But even with those very few, there's been some success. But with those very few, what does happen?
The only very few cases is just it's rejection, and the disease just continues to hurt the person. But the positives outweigh the negatives, because if you have a possible cure for cancer, we should go use this way to try to help people who are just in terrible pain.
I believe that using these embryonic stem cells are I think it's absurd that we're playing God, and I think that it's wrong to kill these innocent children that have pretty much already been conceived.
Well, don't you believe God would want to help all those people with like terrible illnesses sitting in hospital beds with just no care, just nothing to do, just slowly dying?
Well, I believe that there could be an alternative to using stem cells. I don't believe that we should be using these other living human beings to for other people's advantages. And in a lot of cases, it's sped up the progression of a disease.
There's a different way to do it, we haven't found it yet. So this is why this way would help people who are in terrible pain.
I love it. Whatever.
Just let them
That
go.
was awesome.
That was great.
All right, welcome back. It was a very spirited debate regarding the embryonic stem cell research, and let's get a commentary from Ms. Berthume here. Tell us, how would you critique the students' performances?
That was really fun. Ben and Robert took the opportunity to really delve into the issues here, and not only to give a single rebuttal, but actually to carry on rebutting the issues. But I did really feel that by the end of the debate, we got much further than in their initial presentations, which is, I think, the purpose of debating these issues rather than simply writing a position paper. I was impressed that both of the debaters seem to have read some of the same studies about rejection and were able to dialogue about sort of the rates of rejection and the effects of that rejection, and I was impressed.
All right, Mr. Batterman, were you equally impressed by the students' performances? Especially comment on their rebuttals.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I think the thing that they did well was acknowledge the existence of the other side's argument, and then either respond to it directly or weigh it against the argument that they've presented. So the affirmative did a good job of discussing the benefits in terms of medical research and curing disease to weigh against the ethical concerns. I thought the negative did a good job of kind of playing defense, as we would say in debate, against the medical research argument while highlighting his argument about ethics. So I think both of them did a really good job of understanding the full spectrum of the argument.
All right, very good. Now let's handicap our next particular debate, which is going to be on Delaney Crowley and Miss Erica Evans discussing the issue of medical marijuana. Mr. Batterman, let's start with you first. How would you handicap this particular debate?
Well, this debate will be interesting. We've heard a debate about this topic this morning, but it focused more on the legalization of marijuana. I'm hoping that this iteration of the debate discusses the intersection of healthcare policy, drug policy, kind of states' rights, but the whole spectrum of issues specific to medical marijuana, which I think is something that hasn't been discussed as much recently in the United States as just the legalization of marijuana.
All right, and Ms. Berthume, what will you be looking for regarding this particular debate on the use of medical marijuana?
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the interesting things about this debate is it really does get at the heart of the intersection between government and economics. Certainly there are debates in both economic and the political sphere about exactly what effects the legalization of medical marijuana has on our society, and also, of course, the question of whether it is an effective treatment. So I'll be curious to see how both sides treat the intersection of those issues.
All right, very good. So without further ado, we have Ms. Delaney Crowley, who will be arguing the pro side first of the use of medical marijuana. And then next you will hear from Ms. Erica Evans, who will be arguing the con side of the use of medical marijuana. And then hopefully we'll hear some of their rebuttals. So let's turn the cameras over to Ms. Delaney Crowley and Ms. Erica Evans.
Okay, so my first point is that keeping marijuana illegal is really expensive because the federal, state, and local governments take part in the war on drugs. We as citizens pay a lot of taxes so we can keep people who do use marijuana locked up. And if we legalized it, the government could collect taxes on it and use it towards things that the country can benefit from. Not only that, but marijuana has a lot of things that its users can benefit from, but mostly people who suffer from different diseases. Marijuana helps to stop nausea, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. Not only that, but it slows down tumor growth in lungs, breast, and brains. It also has been known to be a muscle relaxant because it has antispasmodic qualities. And it is found that it can help people who have multiple sclerosis because it prevents muscle spasms and neurological effects. Not only that, but it helps children, well, not only children, but anybody who suffers from Tourette's, because doctors have tested it by giving people who suffer from Tourette's doses of marijuana based on their weight, age, and sex, and the level of that tic activity was reduced, as well with the amount of shouting, spitting, and swearing that they do. And it can also be used as a substitute for Ritalin for people who suffer from ADHD and ADD. So I think it would benefit the country if we did legalize it, because it can help people medically, and it would help us if we could put taxes on it to make a profit for things that the country needs.
Okay. Although marijuana does possess benefits, that is only true if it is used properly. Marijuana use is currently at its highest point that we have seen in 30 years. In fact, in a recent survey of people under the age of 30, 70% admit that they have used marijuana not for medicinal purposes, but instead just for fun. While it may just be fun, the short-term and long-term effects may not be worth the momentary fun. The smoking of marijuana has been reported to damage the brain, heart, lungs, and immune system. Researchers have found that the active ingredient in marijuana, THC, to affect the brain by damaging components of the brain that are crucial for learning and memory. As for the heart, THC is known to cause an increased heart rate in regular smokers, which in fact can lead to cardiac arrest. Regular marijuana smokers also may develop similar respiratory problems that tobacco smokers experience. The use of marijuana is not only a growing problem in adults, but also to today's generation of teenagers. According to NIDA's 2012 Monitoring the Future study, about 6.5% of 8th graders, 17% of 10th graders, and 22.9% of 12th graders had used marijuana in the months before the survey, not for medicinal purposes, but just for fun. These just for fun purposes can lead to a decrease in the ability to remember and retain information. Since 2007, annual, monthly, and daily marijuana use increased among 10th and 12th graders, while daily use increased among 8th graders. In 2012, 6.5% of 12th graders reported using marijuana daily, compared to the 5.1% in 2007. These numbers of marijuana users continue to rise, with each teen putting their own health at risk. By legalizing marijuana, the government is essentially saying that the use of marijuana is okay. Although economists have come to the conclusion that the legalization of marijuana will be beneficial for our economy, it has come to conclusion that it could also lower our standards as society. If marijuana is legalized, there is no way that the government will be able to control the distribution and usage. Those who acquire proper permits to obtain the drug may use it for the proper medicinal purposes, but could become distributors to those who will not use the drug for its intended purposes. Also, those who distribute the drugs could not claim the income and their taxes, thus defeating the purpose for legalization of marijuana for economical benefits. Okay.
It is unfair to punish those who do suffer from many diseases that medical marijuana can help them with, and it's not fair that they should not get to use it because of other people's misuse.
Do I get to rebut her statement? And I like to say something against the fact that medicinal marijuana can relieve these symptoms, but the use of marijuana can also lead to being dependent upon the sensation of the relaxed feeling that someone suffering from cancer or ADD will feel and will could use to overuse, which eventually begins to do more damage than it will benefit the person. And also, the use of medicinal marijuana is encouraging to those children that are observing their parents, which is not a good thing, and can be used as a gateway drug, but is not known to cause harsher drugs. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we just heard a very spirited debate on the issue of the use of medical marijuana. Let's start with Ms. Berthiaume. Ms. Berthiaume, will you please critique the performances that you heard today?
I thought both these debaters did a pretty good job. One of the things that I saw from both of them that I really enjoyed was the comparison of arguments that came about when they set up their arguments by acknowledging the other side. So one time where that happened that I thought it was pretty effective is that Erica said, although some studies have found that there may be economic benefits, here is why those economic benefits aren't what we think they're going to be.
Right.
And I think that that's a particularly effective way of resolving some of these public policy debates, is to acknowledge that the other side obviously has a role in the discussion, but that it's not
outweighed by
yes.
the other side.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Mr. Batterman, how would you critique the performances, and especially focus on Ms. Valeni Crowley's?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that by the end of the debate, we kind of got to the core issue, which is, do the benefits of legalization of medical marijuana for the people who will use it to combat symptoms outweigh the cost to society of legalizing? And I thought that the affirmative could have contested whether there were those costs to society. So could have disputed the argument that legalization of marijuana was bad and kind of broadened the scope of the debate there. So I think she missed an opportunity there, but I do think that she did an excellent job of weighing the health benefits versus the potential social costs.
All right, very good. All right, now let's preview for our viewing audience our last debate for today for the second period. We have next on the schedule, we have Miss Grace Brown and Miss Jewel Smith, who will be articulating arguments for and against abortion. All right, Ms. Berthiaume, let's start with you first. What will you be looking for when these two students debate the issue of abortion?
For me, it will come down to weighing the relative benefits and harms. Obviously, the side that believes abortion should be legal is going to make arguments about privacy. They will probably make arguments about the right of a woman to make choices about her own body, and maybe also about the possible harm that comes from children being born to mothers who didn't wish to bear that child. On the other side, of course, we have the common arguments about whether a fetus is a person, whether abortion is in fact murder, and that sort of thing. And for me, for these types of debates where both sides are so polarized, the critical issue for determining whether it's a good debate or not is how the students are making those arguments interact.
Very good. All right, and Mr. Batterman, what will you be looking for as you handicap this particular debate, the issue of abortion?
Similar things. I think that the abortion debates can tend to get heated or have people talking past one another because they disagree about fundamental premises. So I'm hoping that they can find some agreement about what the standard for determining whether abortion is legal or not should be, and then they can kind of just diverge from there. But finding some agreement within a very heated debate is what I'm looking for.
All right, very good. All right, so without further ado, let's turn our cameras over to Ms. Grace Brown, who will be arguing first on the pro side for abortion. And then next you'll hear from Ms. Jewel Smith, who will argue against abortion, and then the rebuttals.
Many will say that abortion is murder, but should we allow children to be born into a world where they will be mistreated and unloved? If a mother gives birth to a child that she can neither afford nor take care of, what will become of that child? Studies show that children who are mistreated and unloved and unwanted growing up usually end up in juvie or found dead in the streets somewhere. The parent cannot afford to send the child to school or give it a proper upbringing, and it ends up somewhere in not a good state. Does abortion not keep this from happening? Another issue seen is when a woman is raped and becomes pregnant. Some girls are raped at very young, and it could be detrimental to their health to try and support a baby for 9 months. They also have school and other things they need to worry about. Should someone who is raped be forced to carry a child? The answer is no. Maybe the parents know that the child is going to be born with a deathly sickness, or it runs in the family, and they do not wish to let the child suffer or watch their own child die. No one should have to experience watching their child grow up with a deathly sickness and dying at a young age. They can stop this from happening by getting an abortion before it's too late. Young girls who choose to have a baby and raise the child by themselves without a father. Do you want your child to grow up without a father figure in his or her life? Children need support in a loving home. They do not need to be worrying about when they will get their next meal or if they will ever meet their father. If abortion becomes illegal, the rate of unsafe abortions will go up. Women will be trying to get abortions using dangerous methods which could potentially cause them great harm or maybe even death. Another conflict involving abortions is whether or not the fetus will feel pain during the abortion. There have been many studies, and scientists are most likely sure that the fetus will not feel pain until the 3rd trimester. Although there is still some debate, studies have shown this to be true. Women have the right to decide what to do with their own body. The Roe v. Wade court case gave women this right. For this reason, abortion should not be considered murder because it is your own body deciding what to do with it. The embryo fetus is part of her body, therefore she has the right to decide. The argument that the fetus is human is very weak. The fetus is not filling out an everyday human life inside the stomach of its mother, nor is it independent of the mother. There are definitely differences between the fetus and a person. A person can sleep, walk, eat independently, while the fetus is dependent solely upon the mother.
On the side of pro-life, life begins at conception, and as a nation we should protect embryos and fetuses from being terminated in the process of abortion. Abortions are not terribly expensive, ranging from $350 to $1,000, but that money could have been used in another way other than terminating the baby. Abortion is basically legal murder, and we belong to a nation that feels punishment by death is right. But punishment by death for a child that has not been born yet is completely wrong, and the baby didn't do anything to you, did it? Sure, women should have the right to choose what they want to do with their body, but when it comes to abortion, the choice should be relatively handled. As said before, unborn babies are human beings, and from the moment of conception, and their right to live is just as important as a full-grown adult and should be protected. When abortion is legal, you are murdering a child. Something might go wrong in the operating room, killing both you and the unborn baby. About one woman every 7 minutes dies because of unsafe abortion procedures. The fetus feels pain during abortion procedures during the 3rd trimester, but still, you should not try and kill your baby before it has the chance to live. When deciding to have an abortion procedure, consider having the baby and giving them up for adoption rather than not letting them experience the world at all. In 1989 in Los Angeles, a statistic shows that 56% of women who have abortions felt guilty about it, and 26% mostly regretted the abortion. There are scientific facts proving that abortion causes psychological harm to women who have the abortion procedure, such as anxiety and depression.
Why do you think that it's okay to make abortion illegal if young girls are being raped and become pregnant and they're in school still? What are they supposed to do? Have the baby when they're that young?
Yes, and give it up for adoption.
But they're still in school. They have their whole life ahead of them. I mean, having a baby can ruin your whole school career.
It could also cause psychological deficiencies.
But okay, can decide. Women can decide what to do with their own body, and even if they do feel regret after having abortion, they made that decision for themselves. So why is it wrong to, I mean, why can someone else say abortion is illegal, but it's your own body? I can decide what to do with my own body. So how can someone else have an opinion for your own self? Like how can you decide that for someone else?
I feel like abortion should be legal in a sense, but not completely. It should have limits. And about 50% of U.S. women who have abortion are under the age of 25. 33% are between 20 and 24, and 17% of them are teenagers. So abortion should have limits that are more strict than they are right now, but still, you should consider not having the baby and putting it up for adoption.
I'm not exaggerating at all. I've seen this in the abortion literature. Yeah.
All right, we are back live here at here during the Woodward Academy Debate Week. We just heard a very spirited debate by two of the students in my government econ class, Miss Grace Brown, Miss Jill Smith, regarding the issue of abortion. Now, Mr. Batterman, please critique their performances. What did you find most effective in their argumentation, and what do you think they could do to improve?
I thought they did a solid job. By the end of the debate, it seemed like they had condensed down to some agreement that in certain circumstances abortion is acceptable, but that in other circumstances it's not. I wish that some of that had started earlier, and if we could have been a little bit more precise about what specifically we were debating about. But I thought that both sides did a pretty good job of summarizing their arguments, presenting a diversity of arguments, and weighing them against their opponents.
All right, Ms. Berthium, tell me what is your critique about the students' performances on this issue of abortion?
I liked the fact that they took the opportunity to give a rebuttal and sort of ask each other either rhetorically or actual questions about how these issues are resolved. It helped sort of get at some of the questions and, as Mr. Batterman said, narrow the debate. I think that the first speech, Grace, on the affirmative, was particularly effective at sort of fleshing out the broad diversity of arguments for her side. Jewel did a different strategy to focus more on a single argument about the life of the fetus and whether murder is involved here. But I thought that both used those strategies to pretty good effect.
All right, very good. Well, there you have it, folks. This is the last debate we have for today for our second period. Tune back in 10 minutes when we wrap up today's the first day of Woodward Academy Debate Week with presentations from my first period class. Thank you very much for tuning in. Okay. All right.